Welcome back to this episode of the Strong Kind Podcast. This episode is with Mitchell Davis. Mitchell is a strength coach. He's also a PhD. He has his PhD in coaching and teaching. Essentially, he has studied the coach-athlete relationship extensively. He's a really intelligent human being. I really love talking to Mitchell. He's a deep thinker. He also just really loves people in life, even though he's got a dry wit and he's often seemingly somewhat nihilistic. Had a great talk with Mitch. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I really did. Let me know how you liked it on Spotify or on YouTube. Appreciate you being here. Thanks. No, we yesterday, like my wife like laid out like a schedule for okay, like this is what this parenting book tells us to do, which I know we both kind of talked about like, okay, who do we care about? But this one's called like Moms on Call, and it's basically like just try to make a schedule, right? Because it's going to be somewhat advantageous. Like kids are and humans are like kind of schedule oriented or at least consistency oriented. So we like go through the schedule and the kid he does really good. He's 2 weeks old. He slept till 1. We will put him down at 9. He slept till 1. And then I get up and I change the diaper, and then my wife comes over and feeds and stuff, and then I go back to bed. And then he got up again at like 4:45, which we want like ideally it would have been like sleep till like 6, right? But it's not that big a deal. But I get up with my wife feeds him, and then he's just wide awake, just eyes just looking at you. And so then I'm like rocking him, like I'm kind of the soother, and she's got what he actually wants, but then I just try to like soothe him.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get up. And and then I didn't get up. I like laid back down with my wife. And then I got up this morning and I realized my computer was not turned on. I hadn't eaten or drank anything. And I'm like, all right, Mitchell's gonna wait 3 minutes here. So I apologize.
Not a problem. I'm glad you're alive and well and
Yeah.
have your coffee. Is that coffee?
It's an Americano. It's a homemade Americano, which is just me making a shot of espresso and then pouring water on it, which is what an Americano is, but it's just nothing fancy. So yeah. Well, how is well, we can start with fatherhood.
Yeah.
How old is your little boy?
Wyatt is 4, a little over
Okay.
4. So fatherhood's fantastic. Congrats, by the way. Haven't been
Thank
able
you.
to congratulate you in person. That's just nothing better.
Dude, it's pretty wild. I think I've never had the level of just doing that I've had in the past 2 weeks where I'm just like just do it. Don't think about it. Like there's no commiserating over my own desires or anything like that. Generally, I can't say I've been perfect, but I think there's just this level of just action taking that I hope I can keep up because and it's kind of showing me like that's capable and I still have to prioritize like my own care. But
Yeah.
like I saw something and I posted it the other day, and it's like, it was I can't remember what the guy Rainn Wilson who played
Yeah.
Dwight. He's
Yeah.
like, the meaning of life is service to others, and I'm like, shit, that's like, yeah, when you serve others, like it's gonna manage your depression, because everybody gets depressed, right? We can talk about this, but like, depression is a normal human wavelength, in my opinion going through the ebbs and flows of life. Like you're gonna get depressed. You're gonna have a low mood that might persist, right? What typically, and then this is again complicated, but what has helped me come out of it often is like trying to orient around how can I help other people, right? And that often helps me manage my own thing. Um, but yeah, a little kid that's like helpless is like the ultimate form of service. And then yeah, just serving my wife because she's got to do the actual like hard stuff in this period. So yeah.
Not just serving, you're serving a human that just does not care about you
Yeah.
until a bit older. That was one of the hardest things for me is um, it was mom first and then me. But if aunts or grandmas came over, then it was mom, aunts and grandmas, then me. And so you're pouring everything you have into this relationship when no one likes a relationship that isn't reciprocal. But then you also have this hardwired thing in you that says, I would die for this this tiny little meatball that at this point I don't even know if it cares about me. And
Yeah.
so that was very hard, just working through that. But my father said, that's kind of what happens, especially with young boys. And so just uh, don't be a selfish prick because Wyatt will turn a certain age and then it's just all dad all the time. It's like, oh no, now now I feel like a jackass for being sad that my son doesn't want me first every waking moment of his day. So
Yeah. Yeah. What age do you think that started for Wyatt?
he's still, I mean, I'm definitely not first, but he's now at that age where, what dad does is cool.
Yeah.
And, he loves to wrestle and he loves to roughhouse and he loves to come in the garage and he's starting to understand what dad does for work and what a football game is and how exciting that is. And he knows what a client is and he knows that dad has to go from a client to go teach. So he's starting to show interest in what I do, which is awesome. So with each passing day, there's a little bit more of wanting to be a bit like dad in him. So
Let's talk about that because that's one thing that I've already like thought about because I've had people just message me and it's like, "Oh, this kid's gonna be the strongest, kindest," and I'm like, "No, like I don't. I all I'm gonna try to do. I mean, I am. I you want. I mean, we can get into this too. Like, I want my kid to value exercise. I want them to value physical fitness in so much as it helps them realize that this is a really good outlet for honestly, I think a lot of human anxieties, right? Like being physically capable helps you manage the fact that like yeah, life there's challenging stuff physically, mentally. Um but I don't necessarily need to impart any more like I don't want to force any of those things on them. I'm trying to like be a good example for what those look like, right? And to some extent I have the knowledge that the previous generation, like my parents, didn't really have when it came to like fitness. It just became you know, we don't like why is this so hard or we don't have this in our schedule, it's not ingrained into us, right? Or it was something we did when we were young, but now that we are older it's too much of a risk, right? Whereas like I just want them to basically reject those norms and find ways to physically be capable and I think that contributes to happiness. But I think there's also this I can't force them to do it type of stuff, right? And you also deal with young men all the time as well, right? And there's almost like, and you talk about, I think what we would probably agree is more like creating an environment that people want to participate inside of, as opposed to making it feel like this pressured experience. Like, what is your opinion on that with your own kid, and then yeah, with honestly high school aged kids?
yeah, with Wyatt, I never tell him let's go work out, but he tells me almost daily, let's go work out. Um, and then on top of that is if I'm in the garage working out and he comes out, I have to, and I fail at this all the time, but I have to check my ego. And, you know, I'm in the middle of doing something and he wants to show me one of, his exercises, which is rolling around on the floor or something. And you get irritated. It's like, I'm on a schedule. I've got stuff to do. Um, but then you kind of stop. It's like, well, okay, so I didn't get my full hour of work in, but I've been training consistently for many years. Stop telling yourself that you're staying healthy as an example for your son because your son's not going to remember dad being healthy. Your son's going to remember dad having fun with him in the garage. And then that's what's going to lead him to want to pursue that on his own. And so, like I said, I fail at that all the time. But there's times where I catch myself and realize you can you can pick up where you left off tomorrow, but little man wants to play right now, so we're gonna play right now. And he loves being coach. He loves telling me what to do. I have a watch, and so he got a watch. His watch doesn't do anything, but he'll go on. He's like, "All right, I'm gonna tell you when to start." And he presses a button, and I do what I'm supposed to do, and then he'll tell me when to stop. And he's learning what it's like to have fun in a weight room
Yeah.
versus seeing his dad blow him off.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. There's always there at the YMCA that I went to as I grew up, there was this guy who just brought his kid and sat him in a chair. And I was just like, I don't know if this is good or bad. I think it's good because the dad's like getting in his workout, but like just making the kids sit in a chair, like, I don't know if it's good or bad because like this was before, every kid had a screen in their hand. He didn't even have
Yeah.
like a Game Boy. It was just like, just sit there, be quiet. Let me do my chest. And all the dude ever did was chest, right? It
Yeah,
was
of
just
course.
chest day.
Of course.
But I mean, you talk about like failure, and this is something that I think about all the time because I think people are so hard on themselves. It's like I fail every day with these little things that this is like the dichotomy of like personal development and self-compassion. Maybe it's not so much dichotomous as like it really should be. Just you need to understand that those things go hand in hand, but like the Goggins mentality, like where I F up, like, oh, you gotta get hard, gotta get better. And then, you have the other, well, everything's okay. I think like just accepting, like, yeah, like you're gonna like parenting is probably the ultimate one. My wife has been so like when he spits up, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, Mary, he's learning how to eat
Yeah.
and you're producing way more milk than you were like the first 3 days. So he's just
Yeah.
gulping it down. He's gonna spit up. But
Yeah.
like you can already feel like this motherly guilt come out. And it's because she cares. And I think that's good, right? And like it's good to care. But like also just like you just keep getting better little by little, right? But where do you think do you see that in high school boys where they're like, or maybe it's some, maybe not others, but where like failure is this thing that they're learning to wrestle with, or and then just even yeah, like kind of going back to that environment of being a coach and helping people move forward with uncertainty, right? It move forward despite uncertainty.
Yeah, I see that in my high school boys all the time. We just started up our off-season training yesterday, which was just we bring in the whole team, and it's a chance for the freshmen who will be sophomores to come in and meet me and meet the head coach, and we kind of go over rules and expectations, and here's what we test, and here's why we test. And then I also see that grappling with failure in my college students, and we've had several conversations about that. So. Failure is people don't like to fail. People don't like other people to see them screwing up. And what I'm seeing, especially at the high school level, is how quickly our students or our athletes uh, big air quotes, recover after a loss. And so one of the things that we talked about yesterday is, our team made it into the playoffs, and we lost a game. And I'm a neutral kind of guy. We lost a game that we should have won. I'm taking my emotions out of that. We should have won that game. There's some games we won that we should have lost, right? But we should have won that game. And it was amazing how quickly the boys got over the hardship of a loss. And on the bus ride home, we're already joking around, having a good time, hooting and hollering. And I don't want them to hang on to a loss for forever. But I'm seeing this trend more and more where we're protecting our egos from loss. And so we'll just chalk it up to it's really not that big of a deal. So what? And even for the seniors who will never play football again, and you spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of weekends. Mom and dad made tons of sacrifices. And for you to be just joking around, I know that's not how you really feel,
Yeah.
but it's a really shitty feeling. And then that goes into our training and self-sabotaging. It's hard to give 100% to do everything I need to do and know that I might still fail.
Yeah.
And so I think from the start all the way through, we're always looking for ways to make that failure uh, something I can manage, push it off, and that's kind of something that we're going to work on this off season with the boys is, hey, I need you to give everything you got, and I need you to give me everything you got while knowing our season might end in the shittiest way possible.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny you so like actually like grieving a loss, right? Because it's kind of hard, I can sit here and be like, well, it's just high school football, right? But I played high school football and I remember like, man, it like when you lost a game and your season was over, like that was the end of, when you're a junior, it's like, okay, we got next year, right? Like, but when you're a senior, it's like, oh man, I'm probably never gonna play football ever again, like tackle football, right? And like that's analogous to a lot of things in life. I almost think it's interesting though, because some people like grieve stuff that shouldn't matter for too long. That's the
Right.
thing, right? This is kind of what me and you probably get into is just like some people grieve stuff that you shouldn't grieve for too long. And then some people don't grieve the stuff that actually you should for like the death of of like a grandparent. Like, yeah, all right, whatever, sorry, move on. It's like, no, like that person was a big part of your life. Like it's okay to take some time and grieve, right? But then like, yeah, then you're then you're grieving that a girl that you weren't even that into broke up with you, when you were 18 years old and you still have that reflection going on for 12 years or whatever, right? Like that's the type of stuff. That's the hard part about being human. It's like knowing what to put down and knowing what to just kind of take with you and learn from. um
It's also hard in our society because, and this isn't everyone, and there's people who struggle on a daily basis, and there's families that have to worry about, are we going to have enough finances to literally put food on the table? But for a lot of us, we have very blissful lives that we just aren't exposed to failure enough. And so, just like anything else, you learn it. And so, if I am not failing on a regular basis, I don't learn how to properly manage the emotions that are associated with it. And so
yeah,
then when something pretty catastrophic does occur, we've had no prior experience or very limited prior experience. And then we wonder, like, why do humans suck at grappling with really difficult decisions and hard emotions? Well, chances are, for the most part, they lived a pretty okay life.
yeah.
Not perfect, but pretty okay life.
I mean, we don't have to. We'll get into politics a little bit. I want more so get into you did a rant that was on fitness, but it was really about politics last week. But like, and somebody that I like, or I think is cool, was like, man, it sucks to live in the United States right now. I'm like, you want to you want to go live somewhere else? Like, I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't places where they're doing some things better, but like you're looking at like probably the least homogenous country in the world, and like we're gonna have problems, right? And but like also, and this is the hard part too. Like, there's a lot of people in my profession in healthcare. My last the last person that was on my podcast, her name's Meredith Grothman, and she's basically like trying to wrestle with the fact that like healthcare is not a human system. Like it's you don't actually, if you're working in the traditional healthcare system as a physician or a nurse or a physical therapist, it's like it's hard because there's so many constraints that are almost not human like, right? And patient expectations are often for treatments that are or things to work that frankly just aren't going to work without like investment of time and energy and building relationship with your provider, right? So there's accepting the reality of that, but at the same time, and I don't know if US healthcare has ever been better per se, but like we have, like, if our kid needed a doctor, I could literally zoom them and they could tell us what's up, right? And we could be like, okay, we can figure this out, right? So there's like some of it's like the user has to be involved in the process, right? And then the institution itself, the leaders have to do a better job of like promoting. Like I think we are very much like there's a for-profit feel that takes a lot of like if you're working your ass off and you're making $60,000 a year and you went to graduate school and you thought you were going to be making 100, it kind of feels like shit, right? But like that's just more that's as much expectations as it is just you're inside of a system that is it's hard, right? When it comes to all right, so you're teaching now. I don't think you were teaching quite yet the last time we talked. I can't remember. When did you start teaching? Did you start teaching last spring or this fall?
This fall. So last time we spoke, I would have been deep in the throes of my dissertation.
I think you just become a doctor. I think this is gonna be episode 35, and I think you had just recently been like maybe you had been told that like you're actually gonna make it. They said we're not gonna chop your head off at the end here.
Yeah, I defended July 5th, the day after Independence Day. We were on vacation with my parents, and obviously I zoomed in, so I was just standing on a little dresser. Um, Defended, passed, and then I spent a couple weeks just completely lost. For anyone who's written a dissertation, you spend what, 2 years hyper focused on just one thing. That becomes your whole life.
Yeah.
And it's not like this, you're not thinking of it's not steps to finish. It's like you're working, you're working, you're working. Your advisor says, hey, it's time to defend. You defend, and then they say you passed, and then that's it. So I
Yeah.
spent 2 weeks very, very distraught, very lost. And then kind of bounced back out of that, emailed my resume out to local college, and they needed a professor 4 days later. So I had 4 days to create a syllabus. So that was fun. So I'm now coaching and teaching. So I get both sides of it, right? I get to go in and actually do the coaching, which I love. And then now I get to go and help inspire and teach the coaches that will one day replace you and I.
What was your dissertation on? Give us the title. Okay, I know
Uh,
in general, but I want to know like the title.
it's a long fancy title, but what I was actually looking at was the associations between the coach athlete relationship, which is a phenomenon that we actually study, and satisfaction. My cohort was high school football players. I chose football because it's the most kids on a given team.
Yeah,
Everyone always asks, why football? Well, because chances are there's 60 kids
60
on a
kids.
roster, and if I chose, volleyball, I'd have 10. So I
Yeah.
needed less schools to hit my participants mark.
That's smart. That there's also like I will say this, and I don't know if I have the football is almost like because there's so many people on a roster that
Mhm.
you have to almost develop the tribal mentality like that every man matters more so like basketball 15 people on a roster, right? Like it kind of sucks to be the third string guy,
Right.
right? But like football, there's like legitimately guys that like might never touch the field and still are relied upon to show up to practice and play, right?
Yeah.
Which is cool. I mean, like there's a certain amount of there's a communal lesson in that for sure, right? Um
Yeah.
when it comes to all right, so coach athlete relationship. You and me are both intangible type of guys, right? We can talk KPIs, and I actually want to ask you some testing type stuff here in the news because I want to put together. I'm 36 years old. I've gotten back into sprinting. I'm really enjoying it. I think I'm gonna sign up for a track meet once I figure out.
Damn.
I'm slow. I was a slow kid. I was fast at like 3 miles. I was fast at like 1 to 3 miles because you don't have to have a first step in those. You just have to be able to keep going. But like my first step, my high school, one of our football coaches like, Dave, like your top speed, like you get going, but your first three steps are so slow. So, but then didn't provide me any way to get better at that, which now I realize like, okay, those are trainable skills. All right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
But let's talk about just coach athlete relationship and like, how we interact or how we know each other is from Instagram, right? And I think somebody posted this the other day. It's like online coaches are scams. And I'm like, fuck. Yeah, like I think a lot of what people perceive that to be, and a lot of what I try to just basically do differently is like, okay, somebody you pay somebody too much money for them to just send you a template and then not check in on you, right? And there are people who are like probably what you would consider like influencers who charge a lot of money to have somebody just to send somebody a template, right? Now, I do think there's a certain amount of investment that certain people need to make in the training process that actually like, and especially the rehab process, because the rehab process can really suck, right? Where it's like you gotta, especially if you want a coach who's going to provide you feedback and tailor things to you. I mean, I talk to all of my athletes once a month on the phone for 30 minutes or more, and then I program and I interact with them probably daily, right? um and I will say that the programming matters, but not near as much as just having somebody that gives a shit about you helping you through this process. I don't know I mean, I think you're nodding your head, but I think that's what coaching is. And then I think there's also this level of I have to get better at utilizing data to continue to do that well, right? Like one of the things I'm trying to get a little bit better at is just really identifying key performance indicators for individuals. Like I'm not going to take the same battery of tests for everybody because I don't have the same. I'm not like trying to coach 40 football players, you know. But like, hey, these are the key performance indicators for you, and we're always testing and retesting. But I want to standardize that so people can see their results, right? Even more so than they do. Because training's also kind of boring where you're like, there's just periods of time where you're just literally digging dirt, right? Um, but let's talk about that. Like, talk about the coach athlete relationship. What are the variables that you think matter, or that you've seen matter, and how do people get good at coaching?
Uh, First is just do it a lot. I've been a coach since I was uh, my summer of my freshman year of college. So, what, 15 years now? I sort of had a unique opportunity to go into a nonprofit gym, start working there. And, I've just made all of the mistakes in the world time and time again. So, there's definitely something to be said about just doing. I think one of the other disadvantages of social media is we think that we need to go out and get all of the certifications and go to these seminars. I think stuff like that is great. But when that's your only motive, if you think that accumulating more letters behind your name is what's going to make you a better coach, uh, that's just not it. And then just also figuring out who you are. Um, I the running joke at the school that I coach at Warwick is the guys have a tally of how many times I've yelled at the team. And it's four, and I've been there 4 years. And so they know this because that's just not who I am. And if you're someone who yells at your athletes, I'm not saying for you to not yell at your athletes, but I do think oftentimes, especially with social media, and we go to these seminars and we're hearing other coaches talk about how they coach, we then assume that that's what makes them successful is this way, when chances are they're successful because they're being authentic to the people
Yeah,
in front of them. And humans are intelligent and very perceptive. And if you're not someone who yells, but you have an internship at a college and your head strength coach is a yeller, and now you start yelling, you're people are going to pick up on that. And so I think those are the two biggest things is just give yourself time and be authentic. I'm a laid back dude. My attitude with most things in life is it doesn't matter. And so the athletes who stay with me long term are also the people who appreciate that mindset because they need someone who's going to bring them back to neutral. Uh, so the athletes who don't like that aren't seeking out my advice, right?
Yeah, and I want to just defend you because I think some of the people who may not, if some of the 15 people who are going to listen to this video, or us podcast, will be like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, that's not a nihilistic doesn't matter. That's that you have applied you've probably applied so much of your filter to all the noise of the world that you can just discernibly say that there's not as much signal in what matters in life as we have made out there out to be. I think one of the things I've just been ruminating on this last week is like basically everything is just hype anymore. Like
Mhm.
we are just in this hype. Like so it's like, and you've probably you're in the high school realm right now, right? It's like kids getting like highlight video like this, like everybody's got a highlight video, and or everybody's got like awesome pictures of themselves, and it's like it's not that those things aren't cool, but what we're doing is we're just basically like hyping up like the realities of life are. I mean, I have spent the last 2 weeks in this bubble that is my wife, my kid, my dog, and like a few family members that have been over and stuff. And if my expectations for life was that I need to be like riding jet skis and like and doing cocaine, like this would not be work at all, right? It'd be terrible. But I'm loving what this is right now, and it's just this own season of almost like kind of relative boredom, which is gonna change, right? But like if my expectations were XYZ, and then that's not where things really came out to be. That's a really frustrating thing to be. And I think that's what you ultimately mean about um a lot of things don't matter because a lot of things are just people imparting these weird expectations or that like in the weight room, like if you have a bad day, you were there and it showed up. You showed up. If you deviated, you had a deviation in performance. If you tried hard, it doesn't matter in the long run. This is where I actually Austin Brock, who just posted, he's been posting more, the barbell medicine guy, and
Yep.
he's like um so many people look to optimize the first 12 weeks of their training career. And it's like, why does that matter if you're going to be doing this for 10 years, right? And inevitably, you're going to like face. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to make progress quickly. And like in your realm, you're probably to some extent judged on your ability to like help kids reach their potential or move towards their potential quickly. But there's also just this element of competency, consistency, some of these real skills that like are really meaningful that, not everybody's going to be able to express their peak in a 16-week period of time. And in those regards, there are things that we have to just not let matter, right? Um, when it comes to, well, spitball on that if you have a take on that.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go a little deeper on my comment. Like this stuff doesn't matter, right? And so since you said the word politics, which is scary to some people, I'll use the term religion. And so regardless of religion, most major religions has us focusing on what is to come. And my perspective, and I'm not here to argue religion with anyone, my perspective is if I'm so focused on what is to come, I'm missing the chance for this to be heaven right here,
Yeah,
right in front of me.
yeah,
And I'm so worried about tomorrow. I might have missed an opportunity to sit down on the floor and play with Wyatt for what could be the last time.
yeah.
And so that is what I mean when I say, this extra stuff doesn't matter. What matters is what's happening right in front of me in real time. And
Yeah.
so that doesn't mean that there's not things that I'm not worried about. And it doesn't mean that I'm just living this life of, oh, if it's not directly impacting me or my son or my wife, I don't care. But it means constantly coming back to, hey, my mental bandwidth is just so stretched
Mm,
right now, excuse me. And now I'm being a shitty dad because my
yeah.
son wants to play.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I meant in terms of, hey, this stuff doesn't matter. Um, So yeah,
Yeah, and I didn't want to assume, but I just also like kind of know what you're getting at. And yeah, the reality of it is like me and you are probably going to be two people who are like, hey, what you do in the weight room really does matter, right? Like, yeah, showing up. I was, I'll just a lot of my journey stems from like my expectations was when I went into my freshman year of high school was that like, oh, I was actually going to be strong. And then I actually really realized like, oh shit, I'm not strong. And then it was four-ish years of like shying away from getting good because I couldn't take like the humbleness of that. I didn't have like that direct mentorship where it's like, no, you can get good at this. You're just gonna have to actually like it's just not going to come easy to you, right? Like you have some friends that like I think apparently it comes easy to. And so what I did instead is I just went and I knew I had to run to make the soccer team and I really wanted to make the soccer team and I could just go run, right? But like putting a barbell on my back and squatting, like all we had there was that like cord that was
yeah.
at the parallel. And if somebody would have just been like, dude, just do box squats or just do goblet squats, like you're gonna be fine, right? That would have been a game changer. But I digress. But that's a lot of how that's shaped me here. And then I've also just seen like, yeah, like you take somebody, and I even saw this amongst kids when I was in high school, and I see it now. Like one of my clients last week who's local came and she was just having a shitty day. She had a migraine, she came and we talked and we lifted, and by the end of that session, she was just in a drastic and she PR'd. Like she PR'd her deadlift and she was just in a drastically different place. And I'm like, that's the power of this stuff. This is why it matters, right? That's what matters. Um, when it comes to all right, so I do want to get into some key performance indicators. I'm 36. I want to get stronger, faster, more capable. What are some of the tests that you would be like, all right, Dave, what are the tests you're having your football players like try to work on? Give me some of those.
The tests that we use are the back squat, bench press, power clean, and then we do the vertical jump test, 40, and then the agility L drill. And we do those number one because my bosses, the sport coaches, tell me they want to see those, and number two because the boys have so much fun doing them. And then we've repeated those same tests for 4 years now, and it gives us long-term data and it shows the boys where they're at in a given season and then year over year. Uh, and so, perfect is the enemy of good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if we should add this in? Well, what about the deadlift? Or what about, well, I just have 2 days to give to testing. We can go out to the field on day one. We get the 40, the L drill, and the vert done on day one. Day two, they come in and they do the clean, the squat, and the bench. And then coaches will say, well, isn't that too much in one day? Well, maybe, but I just don't have any more time to give. And my boys need to lift heavy and increase their volume. And so extending that out more is just not beneficial. And so for that sport, that's what the coaches wanted. That's what they get. And so my first step is always to coaches, hey, what is it that you guys want to see? Because if the coaches are looking for something in specifically, number one, now the coaches are more bought into what I'm saying. I'm not this guy coming in saying, well, you guys only know football, so this is the weight room. You guys are wrong. Number two, it now allows the kids to understand the importance of what they're doing. And
Yeah.
now a kid is making leaps and bounds, and they see that sport coach notices that, the kid's now a little more inclined to, hey, you know what? I didn't PR this block. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And so we keep them in year round. We test anywhere between 3 and 4 times a year, just depending on how things go. And I've kept them for 4 years. I don't have to change them because kids continue to improve on them and they really like those tests. I mean, they
Yeah.
get fired up for it. So, taking that same approach to an individual client, now obviously, if they have a particular sport, CrossFit, powerlifting, whatever it is, yeah, you can be super specific. But one of the things I have clients ask me all the time, like, hey, what do you think I need to, what should we be focusing on? I don't know, man, what do you want to focus on?
Yeah.
If I tell you something you should focus on and you don't like it,
That's
and then
bad.
you
Yeah.
fail, and then you fail at it, you're
Yeah.
gonna get super upset versus if
Yeah.
hey, all I care about is the bench press. You
Yeah.
know, coaches, get out of the way. Like if that's all that person wants to focus on, and you spend some time kind of spilling into that, more chances than not is that person's going to get through whatever block and they're going to realize maybe there's a little bit more to life and to lifting than a heavy bench. Now
Yeah.
they're bought into you because you're someone who cares. They
Yeah.
see what hard work does. And really, was it the fancy crap I did, or was it simply because they were having a shit ton of fun and that motivated them to go to the gym consistently? And all of a sudden, they're PRing, right? So,
Yeah. It's I think it's really like the best managers look like they're doing the least. Also, the worst managers look like they're doing the least, right? But like the being a good coach in my brain is continuously getting better at being like, okay, what do you want, right? And letting what you want and then trying to get clarity on what people want because there's a lot of people who don't really know what they want, right? They want to try stuff, which is cool. Nothing wrong with that, right? So let's try it. It's really just the fuck around and find out type of mentality that
mhm.
there's a lot of people who don't like that because it invokes certain amount of like, well, you don't actually know. And it's like, well, actually nobody knows. I firmly believe nobody knows. The charlatans are just the most at they're the best at convincing you that they know, right? And that's fine. The tricky part about that when it comes to rehab and training is when it doesn't work and you've been told that this is going to work, there's this implicit I'm broken or I need something even more special. You're somebody that has given up alcohol, right? You and there's a I think it's from AA, but it's like called terminal uniqueness, right? And it's the person who and I don't think people are going around explicitly saying that I am terminally unique, right? But what I think is what is weaved into so many people's thinking over the course of time because of a lot of complex factors is that like the big stuff the stuff that works everybody else doesn't work for me. And how you navigate that is actually letting people tell you what they want, like using your like being a good coach and saying, all right, well, this is what you're telling me, this is what I would propose we try, and how do you feel about that? Okay, yeah, I feel good. And then inevitably, 4 to 6 weeks in, if it's working, great, right? Again, they trust you more. When it's not working, you do the same thing. And you hope that over time we start to move towards some of the people that I've gotten some people that were when they came to me, they displayed some terminal uniqueness and
Mhm.
their program started out very complex and like what I would almost call like something that, and I've done this to myself, that it just wasn't like actually something that was conducive to them making the progress they wanted, right? And over the course of months to sometimes years, you just chip away and it becomes this like very basic thing. And then they're making a tremendous amount of progress and they're like, yeah, like this is awesome. And it's like I would have never thought that I could basically it could be this simple. And it's simple but hard, right? And that's where we all do that. I did that with nutrition for a long time. And now I'm basically just eating 2000 calories a day and losing weight and feeling pretty good, right? And I'm eating protein and I'm like, I'm hitting macros type stuff. But it's basically just, hey, create a caloric deficit and monitor your weight.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to all right, is it 1 rep max power clean back squat bench, or is it 3 rep max, or do you have like a training like what does that look like?
One rep max.
Okay, I like it.
Boys want to see what their one rep max is. And what's cool is um, uh, I think you'd be pretty hard pressed outside of, private high schools who can, recruit. They
Yeah,
recruit. You'd be
yeah,
pretty hard pressed to find a team, collectively, a team that's as strong as these boys.
yeah,
I'd be pretty confident to say, as an entity. These boys are freakishly strong. I have two kids who are to standard, hitting 500 pounds on a back squat. I had two boys last year hit 295 hang clean in socks, by the way. 75% of our team last year was repping 225 on bench. You remove the freshmen who were in my mind they're sophomores. You remove those sophomores, it now went up to 90% of the team who was benching 225 for reps. Now, for those of you who aren't privy to the high school strength standards, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And so uh, I'm giving them what they want. They
Yeah.
want to move heavyweight. They want to have fun. They want to compete. And we had one season-ending injury this year, non-contact ACL. It was week 10 of 10, and this individual played both directions every single game.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes I see these coaches where it's like they're just doing the stuff that the kids aren't bought into because kids don't care about uh, the same stuff that maybe the adult population cares about. And what I'm seeing is if our boys are consistent, they're showing up to the weight room 80% of the time, year after year after year. And our boys are strong and robust and fast and not overworked. Now, when you have a team where most of your starters have to play both directions, they're able to do so. We've minimized injuries and we've maximized their ability to play their sport. Uh, and that, to me, that doesn't occur if I'm this dictator telling these boys every step of the way, you have to do it my way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, I mean, like high school boys repping squat, even just squatting to standard is an accomplishment, right? Repping, benching 225 for reps. Um, doing some of these basics like pretty well is really awesome. Like I also just think, man, there's this collective environment. That's one of the big things I wish, and I think up until probably the last couple years, I was almost afraid, but like I love training alone, because it's just like kind of my time. But like those kids are feeding off of each other. When you see somebody else that like and they're working hard and you're like, I if they can do that, I can push, right? Like that's one of the awesome parts. And it's also, I mean, it's just human nature, right? It's modeling other people's behavior and it's like that environment is spurring a lot of growth collectively. Um do you think are there kids that how have you gotten kids to like not shy away from that? Because it's inevitably hard, right? And some kids, I think when they're confronted with doing the hard thing, or just like sitting back and not, there's gonna be people who could potentially. I kind of did that. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it's not that I didn't lift. I was doing all the things and stuff, but I was just like, I was kind of almost afraid to be bad, so that I just kind of like didn't care type of thing. How do you combat that type of thing if you've seen it?
Yeah, this is so 15 years of doing this, coupled with 15 years in a weight room in some capacity. This is now my third high school that I've been at, and so I have time on my side where I've seen thousands of athletes in a weight room, and I just don't get alarmed at shitty movement. And I think one of the things that occurs that actually just shoots the strength coach in the foot is we're too quick to step in and shut something down.
Yeah.
And so when my sophomores come in who have little to no experience of a power clean, I could make them go through the dowel rod, check all their performance metrics. Are you doing this right? Or I could rely on 15 years where maybe five kids have gotten a boo-boo in the weight room versus the hundreds and hundreds on the sporting field. And for me to say, you know what, this kid, it's pretty low percent that this kid is going to actually hurt themselves doing something like a power clean. And when you're calm and relaxed and you're not doing like one of these, like, oh, and you're not rushing in, hey, stop that. And you're patient and you let them finish their set and you give them one thing to focus on, and then you just leave them alone for the rest of the day. And then the next week they come in and they're a little bit better. And
Mhm.
then you blink and it's 6 months later. And now all of a sudden, all those kids that you were convinced needed all the coaching cues look just like their senior counterparts.
Yeah.
But now they're confident. And now, when they are overloading something or they are doing something wrong, now you can pull them aside and say something like, "Hey, we do need to address this." And so, I think in the realm of strength and conditioning, we're so worried about our own job, we don't want to get fired. And so we just assume that the individuals in front of us are weak and fragile, that we shut them down so early, they don't have a chance to make those mistakes. Make the mistakes and realize I didn't die from that. Hey, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Now I can push it a bit more. So really, it's just if you walk into my weight room on any given day, it appears that I'm not doing a whole lot because it's more of the side conversations between sets.
Yeah.
Talking to that kid, like, hey, what makes this kid tick? How do I have this conversation so he's not going to be upset about it? And more so, how am I going to have this conversation so he's ready to hit it harder the next set, and then give him time. I mean, go pick up a sport you never played before, and then I'm going to come correct you after every single step that you do. You're not going to like it, and you're going to be like, "What
Yep.
the hell, man? Like I've never done this before. Why are you, why are you up my butt?"
Yeah. It's, I mean, so much of like the experience piece of coaching is in learning to let go of your ego and again create the environment for success that often looks like you're not doing as much as some what people like. Dude, you see some of these promos for like people what people are doing and it's like, yeah, you're just making that person anxious. You're just literally like that's not how you get good at stuff is by having someone micromanage the task.
I
Literally,
love
go ahead.
I love the photo. It's like the coach, like it's like the photo's always them like on their hands and
Yeah,
knees, like this close to a client. And it's like
yeah,
attention to detail. And like, I'm there with you every single rep. It's like,
yeah.
bro, leave them alone.
That's not like just look at little kids. Like look at little kids and how they learn to move. And little kids are often, I mean, they have giant heads. So don't give me they squat so perfectly. They squat so perfectly because their head is massive. And, but they do learn to move really well. And then you know what happens is they kind of hit a little goofy period and then we start to inject them into sports where people are trying to control how they do it, right? Instead of just figuring out the task, figuring out the goal and helping them learn little by little, right? It's just like if I gave you a bunch of different math problems, like you're not going to learn to do that because there's no pattern recognition. Like that's why we learn to subtract and we learn to add first, right? And then we build on that, right? Where what people do in the weight room is just and so much of it is the exercise is the task is the teacher, right? Just make the task doable where they're gonna fail and then like that's okay. Like I tell clients all the time, like people will be like, what do I need to do here? I'm like, just let the task teach you how to do it. Like look at the video I've sent, think about this one thing, and then just go light enough that you can learn it and then start to add weight as it breaks down, right? Or until it kind of breaks down. That's what a lot of this is, right? But we all want results faster and we all have this notion that there's like one thing that we inject into our brain and sometimes this can be true where like oh this is going to fix everything but like you know what fixes everything getting stronger getting faster displaying these things better and deliberate practice like very intentional practice right um when it comes to you mentioned something really good there and I just I just rambled and I can't remember what I was gonna say. But yeah, I think if you were gonna kind of well, they're high school kids, right? Uh this is what I want to wrap up. Where does the confidence that they get from lifting and like playing, how does that help them become better men, in high school? And like these are kids that are gonna F up. Like that's also, I'm not saying that these are model citizens, right? But like how do you see the confidence and the skills that they get from training transfer to the rest of their life? And if
Uh,
not at all, that's fine.
I mean, first and foremost, any human is going to gain confidence when they start to feel better about themselves. And so, whether it's I can lift more heavy circles in a row, or now I'm fitting in my clothes differently and in a better way, they're getting the confidence. But they're also seeing how that's transferring to the field. And so, all of a sudden the kid who wasn't supposed to be the fastest on the field is now the fastest on the field because he took his off-season training very seriously. And Coach Prime's kind of right when he says, "Look good, feel good, play good." And you get these kids for 9 months out of the year training really hard. They're going to start to believe in themselves more. Uh, but I would say more than that is they're working with you as the coach for so long, and they're seeing that there's an individual in their life who just loves them for who they are and who is just there for them and who is cheering them on. That then when shit goes south, they have someone to go talk to or someone who they can be pissed off with. Uh, One of my favorite stories was we have a young guy, Rowan. He was a junior last year, and all of his buddies in the junior class started on the varsity squad this year, and he didn't. And the way that our schedule works is the JV kids have to come in on Saturday to get their lift in because there's no other time for them to do so.
Hmm.
So varsity gets to sleep in, JV doesn't. And it was like 2 games into the season, something like that. Rowan comes in, and he's sitting by himself between his sets, his head's down. And I go over to him and I say, "Hey, are you pissed off?" And he goes, "No." I said, "Okay, I'll ask it again, but this time we're both going to tell the truth. Hey, are you pissed off?" "Yeah." I said, "Why?" And he starts to say, I said, "I know why you're pissed, but you have to say it." "Well, because I'm here and my buddies aren't." And I said, "Listen to me. There is no kid who put in more consistent work in the weight room and on the field on this team during our offseason." And I meant it. This kid gave his soul for the team. And I said, "You just wait." The next week, he was starting on the field, not due to an injury, but because of his ability to play. And not only did he start playing, he was nominated as we have a fourth captain of a guy
Hmm.
who played really well the previous week. He was a captain as a junior. He started leading the team in things like receptions and catches, and he had touchdowns. And now him and I have this joke of, "Hey, do you remember when I told you and you didn't believe me? Do you believe me now?" And so it's a combination of he does all the stuff, but we're humans. We don't always see that this is paying off. It's hard work and there's no certainty of success. You got to couple that with an individual in your life who is just going to be there and love you regardless of what he's doing, right? I ask my football guys this all the time is, "Why do you think I love you?" And they always say, "Well, because I'm a football player." I said that's bullshit. I don't care that you play football. I love you because of who you are. And it's like almost every time, it's like no one outside of mom and dad has ever told me that. And tragically, in some cases, mom or dad hasn't even
Yeah,
told me that.
yeah, yeah,
And so now you have a kid. Now failure is a little bit easier because they know that there's someone out there who is going to give a shit about them no matter what. Now maybe I can face the uncertainty of missing a 1 rep max power clean 3 times in a row and not giving up.
yeah,
Maybe I can face the uncertainty if I don't get to start those 2 first games and if I just keep working and if Coach Davis said that if I keep working, I'm going to play, oh, holy shit. Now I have the momentum to go. So Yes, there's the side of training that definitely pays off. But if you just give someone the best training in the world, that all of the scientists come together and say, this is exactly what this specific individual needs, they will succeed. And there's no one in their corner talking to them. And, you say kindness, I say love. I think we're both speaking the same thing, the same
Mhm.
language. I don't give a shit how good that program is. It's not going to be nearly as effective as if you have a really crappy program and a coach who invests and loves in that individual. That kid, that adult, whoever it is going to is going to crush their program, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, so much of the program is just the intangible and implicit like implications of who's telling you to do it, right? And or like honestly, so much of it is just, do you believe in this? Most
Yeah.
people, honestly, when they're not succeeding, they don't believe in it, and they're trying to do too much too soon, right? They're not trusting the program. If you trust the program, because adaptation takes time. Fundamentally, this is the thing that most people need to understand. Adaptation takes time. On a daily basis, you're not going to notice that much. On a weekly basis, still not going to notice that much. On a monthly basis, a little bit more. And on a 4 to 6 month time frame, probably a decent amount, right? It's kind of like the Bill Gates, and this is attributed to Bill Gates. Like, um, you can get a lot done in a year, but you got to give up trying to get a lot done every day, type of thing, right? And I don't know if that was paraphrased. But yeah, dude, I'm with you. The last podcast you were on is like, I'm gonna start telling people I love them more, which I don't know if it necessarily totally converted, but I definitely tell my wife and my kid that I love them a lot. So, um, and the people around me, I have gotten better at expressing that. So, yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. I appreciate your time. I hear a baby upstairs, so I gotta go see what's up and help out. But I appreciate you, man. It sounds like you're doing good stuff on multiple levels, so proud of you for
Appreciate it.
that.
Thank you.
You're making me maybe want to get a PhD, but also I don't know about that. I do love to teach. I think that's one of the things that I'm really trying to figure out is, how do I teach? Like, I'm teaching now, but like teaching on like a level that's like helping coaches or helping at a different level. And my Instagram kind of does that, but like you're doing it in the way that's like classical. Like I'm teaching, which is cool. So I'm
Yeah,
proud of
you
you for
don't you don't need a PhD to teach. You just need a
yeah.
PhD to teach master's level.
Okay.
So you're right there.
Yeah.
And with the remote side of things, like online classes,
Yeah.
you can teach in many capacities. So
Yeah.
what I don't want you to do is spend 4 years being sad writing a paper
Yeah.
just to go teach. Like you could
That's
do that now without the sadness.
I mean, yeah, but some of it's like you gotta love that sadness. There's two parts of me right now that are like really in battle, because my life is very much what I set out to try to make it 4 or 5 years ago. But I do want to write a book and like or become an author. Like that's such a I shouldn't say it aloud, but like I do. I need to actually sit down and start to tease out like writing. But teaching and writing are passions of mine. And I write every day too, but I don't write like extensive long form type content. So you're right though. Most of the shit is just do it. Just do it and suffer with it. So appreciate you, man.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Where can people find you?
Instagram, that's where I'm mostly at. I'm the guy who's sipping coffee, yelling at people about nonsense. So,
I love it.
Coach Coach
Yeah,
M Davis. I don't even know my own Instagram handle.
it is Coach M Davis. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mitchell Davis, PhD, Coach M, or Coach underscore M Davis.
There you
Uh,
go.
go give him a follow. He's got good takes with his coffee, and he's a good dude. So appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Dave. Go enjoy
Peace.
go enjoy time with the wife and son.
I will. See ya.
Awesome.